Hello, everyone. For decades, Eddie Griffin has carried a reputation as the comic who refuses to be controlled, a truth teller whose humor cuts too close for comfort. And when he finally began speaking at length about what he believes happened between him and Tyler Perry, the story unfolded not as a single explosive revelation, but as a slow-burning account of disappointment, exclusion, and a deep sense of betrayal that built quietly over many years. Because in Eddie's telling, the issue was never about one role, one deal, or one argument. It was about a broader pattern of how power operates when one individual becomes both the gatekeeper and the narrative, and how those who don't align perfectly with that vision often find themselves erased without explanation. And Eddie has repeatedly suggested that when Tyler Perry's influence in Hollywood began to expand rapidly, creating opportunities that were marketed as transformational for Black artists, there was also an unspoken expectation of obedience, tone control, and brand loyalty. And Eddie, whose comedy has always thrived on provocation, intellectual edge, and discomfort, did not fit neatly into a system built on predictability and mass appeal, and rather than being challenged openly, he felt quietly sidelined, as if his presence complicated a carefully curated image that left no room for dissenting energy. And what makes Eddie's account linger is the emotional weight behind it. Because he wasn't speaking as an outsider looking in, but as someone who believed he had earned a seat at the table through decades of work, sacrifice, and cultural impact, only to realize that access in Hollywood is rarely about legacy and often about compliance. And Eddie has implied that conversations happened behind closed doors that never reached the public. Moments where creative differences were framed as attitude problems, and where refusing to soften his voice was interpreted as being uncooperative, a label that follows artists silently and shuts doors without formal rejection. And as Tyler Perry's empire grew, with studios, stages, and distribution channels under one umbrella, Eddie's absence from that world became more noticeable, not because he lacked relevance, but because he no longer fit the preferred mold. And Eddie has expressed that watching others rise while feeling deliberately overlooked created a kind of slow erosion, not just of opportunity, but of trust, because the narrative of unity and uplift did not match his lived experience. And over time, that dissonance hardened into frustration, then into reflection, and eventually into a willingness to speak, even knowing that challenging a powerful figure often comes with consequences. And Eddie's long-form commentary on the situation reveals something deeper than personal grievance. It exposes how centralized power can reshape culture while quietly narrowing the range of voices allowed within it, and how artists who built their careers on independence often struggle when the industry shifts toward consolidation, where access is filtered through a single vision, and Eddie's pain seems rooted not in what he lost, but in what he believes was taken from him without honesty, the dignity of being told the truth, the respect of being acknowledged as a peer rather than dismissed as incompatible. And as he reflected on these experiences later in life, his tone shifted from anger to something heavier, a resigned awareness that speaking up rarely changes outcomes but remains necessary for self-respect. And he suggested that the greatest damage wasn't to his career, but to his belief that success among his own community would naturally include space for difference, debate, and creative friction. And instead, he encountered a system where harmony was valued over honesty, and silence was rewarded more than challenge. And whether one agrees with Eddie Griffin's perspective or not, his account forces a difficult conversation about how power reshapes ideals, how empires require maintenance, and how artists who refuse to bend often pay a price that never makes headlines. And in the end, what Eddie Griffin finally exposed was not a scandal designed for shock, but a quiet reality he believes defines Hollywood more than anyone wants to admit: that opportunity is often conditional, respect is selective, and integrity, while admirable, can be costly when it stands in the way of a carefully controlled legacy. Thanks for watching.